Chapter 19. All is lost.
Midnight crept through the sanctuary like whispered secrets. The servants slept in distant quarters, their gentle snores filtering through the ventilation systems. Alien starlight painted corridors in shades of silver and shadow, each beam filtered through crystalline formations that bent physics into geometries. My enhanced vision struggled to process. My bare feet found purchase on stone worn smooth by centuries of passage. The mountain's living rock adjusted automatically to accommodate my steps. Each footfall carried me further from silk sheets and golden fixtures that had become symbols of elaborate captivity. The pack's breathing echoed from their communal chambers as I passed, deep, rhythmic, trusting. Grimjaw's distinctive rumble mixed with the subordinates' lighter inhalations. They believed their alpha's protection extended to all within these walls. They didn't understand that the greatest threat came from within, from mandates issued by cosmic bureaucracy that treated individual consciousness as renewable resource. The World Tree Gateway pulsed with patient invitation at the sanctuary's deepest level. Its translucent surface showed glimpses of infinite realms layered like pages in a book. But as I approached, I noticed something different. One glyph on the control panel pulsed with steady amber light, already active, already set. Someone had prepared a portal. My trembling hands hesitated over the glowing symbol. This felt too easy, too convenient. But behind me lay Kaelan and his mandate, the breeding stock destiny that awaited whether I resisted or complied. Ahead lay... What? I couldn't read the coordinates. Didn't understand the alien script that would tell me where this portal led. I pressed my palm against the pulsing glyph. The gateway's surface rippled like disturbed water, reality bending as the portal spun to life. Through the shimmering disk, I glimpsed paradise. Mountain peaks painted in shades of twilight purple, their slopes covered with vegetation that moved with purposeful animation. Crystalline streams caught light that had no earthly spectrum. The air itself seemed to shimmer with promise of sanctuary far from divine territories. Not the crystal forests where centaurs had nearly made me their plaything. Somewhere that looked peaceful. Safe. I didn't question who had set the coordinates, didn't wonder why a portal would be waiting, prepared, as if someone had known I would run. Desperation made me reckless. I stepped through before courage could fail, before rational thought could override the screaming need to escape. The sensation of dimensional travel stretched my consciousness through spaces that existed between heartbeats while simultaneously spanning geological ages. Temperature dropping, atmospheric pressure shifting, gravitational constant adjusting by a fraction. Mountain air hit my lungs like a physical blow, cold and sharp with promise of distant storms. The atmosphere tasted different here. Higher oxygen content, traces of minerals unknown to earthly geology, scents that spoke of life evolving according to principles that had never included humans. Behind me, the gateway sealed with finality. The portal's surface solidified into what appeared to be natural rock formation, camouflaged against the mountainside. No pursuit yet. Perhaps Kaelan slept deeply, divine senses dulled by recent ambrosia consumption. Perhaps he truly believed his carefully cultivated trust had eliminated any flight risk. The thought sent fresh pain through spaces where trust had shattered. I pushed it away, focusing instead on immediate survival. Terrain needed mapping, shelter required before whatever predators hunted these alien peaks found me. Lightning split the clear sky without warning. The bolt struck with force that superheated air into plasma, its electrical discharge close enough that the ozone smell made my sinuses burn. Divine electricity crackled across star-scattered heavens as a figure materialized, tempest energy coalescing into a shape that wore violence like a comfortable second skin. Theron the Stormbringer stood atop an outcropping 30 feet above my position, his scarred features twisted with cold satisfaction, silver eyes tracking my frozen form. Tempest energy played around armor that reflected otherworldly light, each surface catching and amplifying electrical discharge until he seemed to radiate captured lightning.
Running again, little thief?
His voice carried undertones of controlled violence, barely leashed.
How fortunate that some among us maintain proper vigilance, while others grow soft through botanical distractions.
The ambush was perfectly calculated. Far enough from Kaelan's sanctuary that divine senses wouldn't detect distress before Theron completed whatever extraction he'd planned. Close enough to his own domain, those storm-racked peaks visible in the distance, for swift transport. I ran. My feet found purchase on surfaces that crumbled under stress, launching myself from rock to rock with desperate efficiency. Behind me, thunder rolled across impossible skies as Theron descended with casual ease. Lightning chains caught my wrists mid-leap, divine electricity wrapping around me with energy that burned worse than any fire. The pain went beyond physical damage. This was power operating at a level that attacked consciousness itself. My momentum carried me forward, even as the chains arrested movement, flipping me through air that suddenly felt thick as water. The landing drove breath from my lungs, rocks beneath me sharp enough to draw blood through silk clothing. Theron stood over me with an expression that mixed satisfaction and calculation.
You have something I need.
He said, lifting my struggling form with casual strength.
And I have uses for botanical knowledge.
The lightning chains tightened, electrical discharge making every nerve scream. Through the pain, I managed one coherent thought. Kaelan will come. I gasped.
I certainly hope so.
Theron's smile held nothing human.
His protective pack instincts should make negotiations delightfully straightforward. The question is whether he'll arrive before I've extracted every fragment of botanical knowledge that makes you worth keeping alive.
The Stormbringer's realm writhed beneath tempest-racked skies that had never known clear weather in millennia. Obsidian peaks thrust toward clouds that bled lightning in a perpetual display of divine power. Their jagged surfaces bore warnings carved in scripts that hurt to perceive directly. Thunder served as my jailer in chambers carved from volcanic glass. Each rumble shook the foundations shaped by violence older than human civilization. Through translucent walls, I watched storms that had raged since before my species developed language. Lightning struck the same locations repeatedly, each bolt carving deeper grooves into rock. The chamber held minimal furnishings. A stone bench carved from the same obsidian as the walls. A basin filled with water that tasted of ozone and minerals unknown to earthly geology. Crystalline fixtures that provided illumination through mechanisms I couldn't decipher. My wrists bore marks from the lightning chains, not burns exactly. Divine electricity operated at levels beyond simple thermal damage. The scars formed patterns that looked almost like circuitry, raised tissue that pulsed with faint luminescence synchronized to distant thunder. The storm outside raged on, mirroring the turmoil within me as Theron's torture continued with relentless intensity. The cage of lightning hummed louder, the energy pulsating in time with my racing heart. Each breath I took was a struggle, the air thick with the smell of ozone and the coppery tang of my own blood. Theron moved with the grace of a predator, circling me like a shark sensing blood in the water. His touch was unpredictable, sometimes a gentle stroke that sent shivers of pleasure down my spine, other times a brutal strike that left my skin smoking and blistered. I never knew what to expect, and that uncertainty gnawed at my sanity.
The hybrid vigor calculations.
He prompted, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very air.
Tell me how Kaelan planned to use them.
I shook my head, my vision swimming with tears and pain. The lightning chains around my wrists and ankles tightened, digging deeper into my flesh, sending spikes of agony up my arms and legs. I gritted my teeth, refusing to give in. Theron's hand closed around my throat, his fingers pressing firmly but not crushing. His thumb brushed against my pulse point, and I could feel the energy building beneath his touch.
You are a stubborn one, Vera,
He murmured.
but everyone breaks eventually.
The lightning tendril returned, this time tracing a path up my inner arm. It was a gentle caress, almost soothing, but I knew better than to relax. With a flick of his wrist, Theron changed the nature of the touch. The caress turned into a searing brand, burning through my skin as if it were paper. I gasped, the pain exploding across my nerves, but I bit back a scream. He leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear.
You can end this at any time.
He whispered.
All you have to do is talk.
The tendril moved lower, tracing patterns on my stomach, each touch a mix of agony and ecstasy. I could feel the energy building, the lightning ready to strike at his command. He was toying with me, enjoying the power he held over my body and mind.
The journals.
He reminded me, his voice a low growl.
Tell me about the dimensional grafting.
I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. The lightning tendril moved higher, brushing against my most sensitive places, sending waves of pleasure crashing through me. I arched against the chains, my body betraying me as it sought more of that dangerous touch. And then, without warning, the pleasure turned to pain. The tendril burned into my flesh, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. I screamed, the sound raw and primal, echoing off the obsidian walls. Theron's hand cupped my chin, forcing me to look into his silver eyes.
Tell me.
He whispered, his thumb brushing against my lips.
And it will stop.
I took a shaky breath, my body trembling with a mix of pain and desire. I knew he was right. I couldn't endure this forever, but I also knew that giving in would mean losing something essential, something that made me who I was. Theron's touch became more insistent, the lightning tendril moving with purpose now, tracing patterns on my skin that left me gasping and confused. Pleasure and pain blurred together, each sensation feeding into the other until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Kaelan's secrets are not yours to take. I managed to gasp out, my voice hoarse from screaming. Theron's lips curved into a cold smile.
Everything is mine to take, Vera. You should know that by now.
He moved closer, his body pressing against mine. The armor he wore cool and unyielding against my heated skin. The lightning tendril wrapped around my thigh, tightening like a vice, and then suddenly it was a wave of pleasure, pulsing against me, drawing a moan from my lips.
You can end this.
He whispered again, his voice a seductive promise.
Just tell me what I want to know.
I shook my head, my vision blurring with tears and exhaustion. The lightning chains dug deeper into my flesh, the pain a constant throbbing reminder of my captivity. I could feel myself slipping, my resolve crumbling under the onslaught of sensation. Theron's hand moved to my hip, his fingers digging into my flesh as he pulled me closer. The lightning tendril traced a path up my spine, each touch a mix of agony and ecstasy. I arched against the chains. Please, I whispered, not sure what I was begging for anymore. Mercy? An end? Or perhaps just a moment of clarity in this storm of sensation? Or was I pleading for more of that touch? Theron's lips brushed against my ear, his breath hot on my skin.
Tell me about the grafting techniques, Vera. Tell me, and I will make it stop.
I took a deep, shuddering breath, my body trembling with exhaustion and pain. I knew I was close to breaking, but I also knew that once I started talking, there would be no going back. Kaelan's secrets would be lost, and with them, a part of me. So, I held on, riding the wave of agony and ecstasy, determined to keep my secrets just a little while longer. The storm outside raged on, a fitting backdrop to the battle raging within me. Hours passed like this. My mind grew foggy and I could no longer recall the questions or the sensations. Pain, pleasure. It had become one to my addled mind. And then Theron stepped back, his silver eyes never leaving mine as he took in the sight of my trembling body suspended in the cage of lightning. A cruel smile played on his lips, a mix of amusement and anticipation twisting his scarred features.
You are strong, Vera.
He said, his voice a low purr that sent a shiver down my spine.
Stronger than most I have encountered. It makes this so much more enjoyable.
He circled me like a predator, the lightning tendril in his hand cracking and hissing as it moved through the air.
Do you know how long it has been since someone has challenged me like this? It is invigorating.
I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to steady myself for whatever was coming next. The chains of lightning dug into my wrists and ankles, a constant reminder of my captivity and the power he held over me. Theron moved closer, his body pressing against mine as he leaned in to whisper in my ear.
I am going to enjoy breaking you, Vera, but I promise, if you just answer one simple question, it will all stop.
His hand moved to my thigh, his fingers digging into my flesh as he pulled me tighter against him. The lightning tendril traced a path up my inner leg, each touch sending a mix of pleasure and pain coursing through my nerves. I gasped, my body betraying me yet again as it responded to his touch.
Tell me about the dimensional grafting, Vera.
He murmured, his lips brushing against my ear.
Just one answer and you can have release.
He started to move the tendril in a slow, deliberate pattern, building my arousal with each pass. The pleasure was intense, a sharp contrast to the agony I had been enduring. I could feel myself edging closer, my body tensing as I approached the precipice. Just as I was about to tip over the edge, Theron changed the sensation. The pleasure turned to pain, the lightning tendril burning into my flesh, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. I cried out, my body convulsing as the orgasm I had been chasing was ripped away from me. "Please," I whispered, my voice hoarse with desperation. "Please, just let me finish." Theron's laugh was low and cruel.
Answer my question, Vera. That is all you have to do.
He started again, the lightning tendril moving with purpose, tracing patterns on my skin that sent waves of pleasure crashing through me. I could feel myself building again, my body desperate for release.
Kaelan's journals.
Theron prompted, his voice a low growl.
What did he discover about hybrid vigor?
I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "You know I can't tell you that." The tendril moved faster, the pleasure more intense with each pass. I was so close, my body tensing as I chased the orgasm that felt just out of reach. And then, without warning, the pleasure turned to pain again. The tendril burned into my flesh, leaving a trail of agony in its wake. I screamed, my body convulsing as the orgasm was ripped away from me once more.
Answer me, Vera.
Theron demanded, his voice like thunder.
And it will stop.
He repeated this torture, edging me towards orgasm only to rip it away at the last moment, replacing pleasure with pain. Each time, he asked his questions, his voice a low growl that echoed through the chamber.
The grafting techniques, Vera. Tell me what you know.
I can't. I gasped, my body trembling with exhaustion and desperation. I won't. Theron's smile was cold and unyielding.
Then we will keep playing, you and I, until you break.
He continued his torment, the lightning tendril moving with cruel precision, building me up only to tear me down. Each time I came closer and closer to the edge, my body desperate for release but always denied.
Just one answer, Vera.
Theron whispered, his lips brushing against my ear.
And it will all stop.
I could feel myself weakening, my resolve crumbling under the onslaught of sensation. The storm outside raged on, a fitting backdrop to the battle raging within me. I didn't know how much longer I could hold out, but I knew that when I broke, a part of me would be lost forever.
Tell me about the apples, Vera.
Theron demanded, his voice like a whip cracking through the air.
Tell me, and I will give you release.
I took a deep, shuddering breath, my body trembling with exhaustion and pain. I was so close to breaking, but I clung to the last shreds of my defiance. Never. I whispered, my voice hoarse with desperation. "You can take everything from me, Theron, but you will never have Kaelan's secrets." His laugh was low and cruel, a promise of more to come.
We will see about that, Vera. We will see.
I don't know how many days this went on. How many sessions Theron toyed with my body trying to get those answers from me. My mind was a blur, a chaotic mix of pleasure and pain that left me disoriented and broken. The ordeal was punctuated by Theron's absence, during which his servants would attend to my still-chained body. They would clean me with efficient, impersonal hands, applying a cool, tingling restorative gel to my raw and blistered skin. The gel brought temporary relief, but it was a fleeting respite from the agony that awaited me. The servants moved with practiced ease, their touches clinical as they tended to my needs. They fed me a nutrient-rich paste that stuck to the roof of my mouth, leaving a bitter aftertaste. Every so often, they would dispose of my waste, their expressions neutral as they performed tasks that were both humiliating and necessary. Theron's sensibilities were meticulous. He wanted nothing to mar the perfection of his domain, not even the byproducts of my suffering. During these brief respites, I would hang limply in the cage, my body aching from the unnatural position and the relentless assault of lightning. My mind would drift, trying to find solace in memories of a time before this torment. But Theron's voice was always there, echoing in my head, a constant reminder of the battle raging within me.
Tell me about the apples, Vera.
He would whisper, his breath hot on my skin.
Just one answer, and it will all stop.
The cycle continued, a never-ending loop of pleasure and pain, edging and denial. Theron's touch became an obsession, a twisted dance of dominance and submission. He would bring me to the brink of orgasm, only to rip it away, replacing it with searing agony. Each time he would demand answers, his voice a low growl that vibrated through my very being.
Kaelan's journals.
He said during one session, rain drumming against obsidian walls while lightning illuminated his scarred features.
They contained more than simple horticultural observations, dimensional grafting techniques, hybrid vigor calculations.
I said nothing, focusing instead on breathing through pain that came in waves synchronized to the electrical discharge crackling through the walls.
The apples were just the beginning.
His silver eyes held a calculating intelligence.
4 centuries of research into a method of independence from them. Knowledge that could reshape the hierarchy itself if properly weaponized.
The revelation struck like a physical blow. My desperate theft to save dying children had triggered consequences spanning multiple realms.
I never would have known about it.
Theron continued, satisfaction clear in his tone.
The Worldbreaker kept his research carefully hidden. But then you stole his precious specimens, forced a response that drew attention from circles who monitor such irregularities.
He leaned closer, divine presence making the air feel heavy.
So I should thank you, really. Without your interference, Kaelan's little rebellion would have continued unnoticed until he'd perfected a method that threatened everything the Seraph have built.
I'm not telling you anything. I managed through split lips. Whatever you think I know, whatever value I hold in your political games, I won't help you hurt him. Theron's laughter shook the mountain foundations.
You already have, little thief. The theft itself was the catalyst. Everything following represents consequences of actions taken with noble intention and catastrophic ignorance.
He straightened, silver eyes tracking patterns only divine perception could detect.
But you can still prove useful, even if it is just leverage against one wayward alpha.
The message arrived written in lightning across obsidian walls. Electrical discharge carved words with precision that left volcanic glass smoking. Release her, and I will consider your proposal. Theron's laughter shook the chamber as he read the terms.
Consider my proposal,
He repeated, each word dripping with contempt.
The Worldbreaker believes he can bargain for stolen property using consideration as currency.
He traced the smoking letters with one finger.
What he offers wouldn't purchase your smallest fingernail, let alone secrets worth more than divine artifacts. He knows this, which means he's buying time while preparing alternatives to negotiation.
The god turned toward me with an expression that mixed calculation and something approaching respect.
Your alpha comes for you.
He said.
But whether he arrives in time, whether his rescue attempt succeeds, before I've extracted everything worth knowing, those outcomes remain delightfully uncertain.
Through storm-lashed windows, I watched gathering darkness. Something moved in the spaces between lightning strikes. Shadows that didn't match the objects casting them, geometries that hurt to perceive directly. The Seraph had taken notice. Cosmic authorities whose attention reshaped reality were moving to contain dimensional disturbances and divine politics that threatened their careful order. Whatever game Theron played, whatever rebellion Kaelan represented, higher powers were responding. The temperature dropped despite the chamber's usual heat from surrounding lava flows. Not physical cold exactly. This was absence operating at a metaphysical level, spaces where warmth couldn't exist. Theron felt it too. His scarred features tightened.
It seems we've drawn more attention than optimal.
he muttered, silver eyes tracking movements in spaces adjacent to normal perception.
The harvest proceeds ahead of schedule.
What harvest? The question emerged before caution could edit it.
The only harvest that matters to powers who view consciousness as a resource.
His voice carried grim satisfaction.
Mine, Kaelan's, yours. All valuable processing material for ambrosia that sustains divine existence through systematic consumption of awareness itself.
Through windows that showed impossible angles, I watched the Seraphs approach. Or at least the shadows they cast while manifesting through dimensions that couldn't sustain their full presence without catastrophic reality failure. They were coming for all of us. And in the cosmic mathematics governing their harvest, individual identity represented nothing more than numerical values awaiting processing. The storm intensified, lightning striking with frequency that transformed continuous discharge into a single sustained scream. Thunder became meaningless sound drowned by reality, tearing along seams where dimensions pressed too close together. Theron's chamber shook with violence that suggested the mountain itself wanted to escape what approached. Through translucent walls, I watched obsidian peaks begin to crack, their surfaces showing stress fractures that had never existed during millennia of isolation.
Impressive timing, Worldbreaker.
Theron said to empty air, acknowledging a presence I couldn't detect.
But you're too late to save anything except possibly your own processing, and that only if you abandon what makes you worth harvesting.
The words hung in superheated air as reality itself prepared for collision between forces that shouldn't coexist in the same dimensional space. Whatever happened next, whoever survived the cosmic attention now focused on this storm-racked realm. The universe would be fundamentally altered. All was lost. But in the losing, perhaps something worth remembering might emerge. Testimony that some loves refused surrender even when surrender represented the optimal strategy.
Chapter 20. Reflection and Realization.
Lightning carved fresh warnings into the obsidian walls, each electrical discharge leaving glass smoking with heat that made the air shimmer. The scent of ozone and scorched stone filled my prison, mixing with the metallic taste of fear that had become a constant companion. Through translucent barriers carved from volcanic fury frozen in time, storm winds howled with voices of centuries trapped in endless rage. Theron paced my chamber with predatory satisfaction, each step measured with precision. His scarred features caught lightning's intermittent illumination, casting shadows that pointed in impossible directions. Divine power radiated from his frame in waves I could feel against my skin. Against the raised scars that pulsed with faint luminescence synchronized to distant thunder.
Our dear Worldbreaker grows desperate,
he announced, gesturing toward fresh symbols burned into volcanic glass beside my stone bench. The letters glowed with residual heat, divine script that wrote itself into my optic nerves and lingered like afterimages.
3 offers of negotiation in as many days, each more pathetic than the last.
I forced myself to look at the messages despite exhaustion that made focusing feel like swimming through tar. Kaelan's careful formality transformed into something approaching pleading. Requests for terms, promises of resources, offers that grew increasingly generous as silence met each attempt at diplomatic resolution.
Perhaps we should send him proof that you remain.
Theron paused, silver eyes tracking my reaction with intensity that made the chamber's air feel heavy.
Intact, for now.
The blade he produced gleamed with more than reflected lightning, divine steel forged in conditions that would vaporize terrestrial metals, its edge humming with frequencies that made my teeth ache and bones vibrate. The weapon carried its own presence, not merely a tool, but extension of will that could carve reality itself, not meant to kill. Death would end the game too quickly, eliminate leverage that only functioned while consciousness remained capable of experiencing suffering. But scars carried messages beyond mere words, and Theron's artistry with pain had been perfected across geological ages.
He cares for you.
My captor observed, the blade's point tracing lazy patterns through air heavy with storm charge. Each movement left trails of distortion where divine steel's edge separated molecular bonds.
More than strategic value should warrant. Curious how gods convince themselves that sentiment won't compromise their effectiveness.
The first cut came without warning. Divine steel parted skin with surgical precision, nerve endings screaming protest. Blood welled bright against pale flesh while lightning illuminated my torment in stark relief, each droplet catching otherworldly light before falling to volcanic glass that drank it in. I bit down on screams that would feed his satisfaction, gave him nothing but defiant silence while pain bloomed hot and immediate, radiating from the wound in waves synchronized with my racing heartbeat. The agony cut deep, but understanding cut deeper. Each mark would be photographed through methods that captured more than visual appearance, transmitted across networks that connected Pantheon territories in ways mortal technology couldn't replicate. Evidence of my suffering delivered to someone who'd begun to care, despite cosmic mandates designed to prevent such dangerous complications.
You see the brilliance?
Theron continued, his work methodical as a master craftsman applying finishing touches to a sculpture. The blade found fresh canvas, tracing patterns that would leave scars mapping systematic degradation across skin that had already borne testament to centaur violence and dimensional predation.
Every mark speaks of consequences for those who harbor rebellious thoughts.
Another cut deeper this time, steel finding pathways between bone with precision of intimate knowledge.
The Seraph understand motivation better than most, threaten what gods value, and even the strongest wills eventually break under accumulated pressure.
Fresh lightning carved his words into obsidian walls while divine steel carved matching patterns into flesh that would heal slowly, deliberately. Each wound calibrated to maximum psychological impact rather than physical damage, torture refined through millennia into art form. Through the agony, fragments of understanding began assembling themselves into a picture whose terrible outline made previous revelations seem like gentle preliminaries. This wasn't improvisation or opportunistic cruelty. This was strategy executing according to plans that had been refined across timescales where individual suffering represented statistical data.
This rebellion has been centuries in the making.
Theron said, pausing to admire his handiwork with an expression that mixed satisfaction and aesthetic appreciation. The blade rested against my collarbone, its edge leaving a shallow groove that wept blood in rhythm with my labored breathing.
Gods questioning cosmic hierarchy, power structures that treat immortals like glorified tools pointed where higher authorities choose. We've gathered allies across multiple pantheons, each contributing pieces to a puzzle that could reshape existence itself.
My heart hammered against ribs that felt too small to contain the growing horror. Not impulse born from recent provocations, not a desperate gambit executed with poor planning and naive hope. This was calculated revolution spanning lifetimes, coordination between beings whose patience was measured in geological ages. You're insane. I managed through lips split from dehydration and previous violence. The words emerged as a croak barely recognizable as human speech. The Seraph will crush you. Whatever rebellion you've built, they control the ambrosia. Without that, gods starve. His laughter rang hollow against obsidian walls.
That's precisely why Kaelan's research was the missing component,
he said, divine steel finding fresh territory on skin that already bore maps of deliberate suffering.
Power independent of Seraph control, energy sources that could sustain the rebellion across multiple dimensions without dependency on resources they distribute to maintain compliance. Without those specimens,
Theron continued, his tone carrying weight.
We remained perpetually vulnerable to leverage wielded by powers who understood that controlling resources meant controlling those who depended on them.
Fresh lightning illuminated his scarred features in stark relief, silver eyes holding depths I couldn't fathom.
But now we have everything needed.
The scope staggered my comprehension despite weeks spent witnessing impossible things treated as routine occurrences. Rebellion requiring resources that spanned star systems, coordination between beings whose conflicts had reshaped continents. My desperate theft to save dying children had been catalysts that would either doom or liberate immortal beings across infinite realms. You know what the apples do? I whispered, understanding finally crystallizing with clarity. That's why you keep asking about the hybrid calculations, the dimensional resonance patterns. You're not just trying to replicate Kaelan's research. You want the apples. Theron's smile held nothing approaching humanity, despite features that mimicked mortal configuration with uncanny precision.
I prefer to think of it as optimization, taking raw potential and refining it into applications that serve purposes beyond what one dog lover desires.
The blade traced fresh patterns while his words painted pictures of horrors beyond personal suffering. Thunder punctuated his vision with percussion that shook the mountain's foundations. Through translucent walls, I watched something shift in the spaces between storm clouds. Not weather patterns, but observers whose geometry hurt to perceive even through volcanic glass that filtered their terrible presence.
But now we have everything needed.
Theron repeated, returning to the point that clearly held significance.
The cosmic hierarchy trembles without yet understanding why. They sense disturbances in established order, but cannot identify the source before rebellion manifests beyond their ability to contain.
His laughter rang hollow against the obsidian walls while lightning provided percussion for divine madness that had been building across centuries of patient preparation.
The Seraph believe they control pantheon politics through ambrosia distribution. They're about to discover that dependency cuts both directions when alternatives emerge from sources they failed to monitor adequately.